The WBO Cruiserweight Champion of the World, the gentleman, Chris Billam-Smith.
It's probably my toughest fight to date, I think, stylistically, because he's just a hard bloke.
Your win over Lawrence Okolie, and I think it's fair to say that you were an underdog going into that fight. You were an underdog.
The years and years of graft all just come into that moment, and you finally get crowned world champion and in the perfect setting.
Hello and welcome back to One-on-One Boxing with me, your host, Rob Tebbutt. As always, I'd like to remind everybody to please like, comment and subscribe. Turn your notifications on for more boxing content. Now that's out of the way, we are joined for another episode of One-on-One by the WBO Cruiserweight Champion of the World, the gentleman, Chris Billam-Smith. How are you, Chris?
Yeah, all good, thank you, mate. Yourself?
Very well, thanks. Very well. Bit of a long day today. We've fit you in despite you being late. So you've made the day slightly longer.
Sorry, mate.
But other than that, I'm doing well.
Good. Well, sorry, mate. I'm in training.
You're a world champion now as well. So
Yeah.
I remember the days before you were world champion.
Yeah.
Like you'd be early rather than late.
I've changed.
So it gets to your head. Becoming a world champion. But anyway, thanks very much for joining us today. We are a couple of days removed from your announced fight with a certain Mateusz Masternak, December the 10th. First question, obviously, why a Sunday?
Because you really didn't want it on a Sunday. So, no, Bournemouth are away on the Saturday. So, I can't have my beloved fans, not, the ones who are there at the stadium, unable to come. The ones that want to come and do the football and the boxing. And now they've got that choice. And, I think it'll be an interesting one. Extra day to prepare for the fight. Be a weird one, I think, like weighing in on a Saturday, but the weigh-in should be busier, so I'm excited.
You've ever boxed on a day that's not a Saturday before?
I boxed on a Friday, but that's kind of the same as a Saturday, really, because no one doesn't change anything with the weigh-in. But I think the weigh-in will be different this time because it's a Saturday, wherever it may be. Who knows?
Right, probably not going to be on the beach if it's in
Hopefully
December.
not, because I will be really cold.
Yeah, very cold. Mateusz Masternak. Now, in the last 3 months, I think I've heard that you've been fighting Lawrence Okolie, Arsene Goulamirian, Richard Riakporhe, Jai Opetaia, and now you're fighting Mateusz Masternak, who, while maybe not the kind of the glamorous name of some of the other fighters that I've just mentioned there, Unification fights, big domestic dust-ups, is a legitimate world-level operator, isn't he?
Absolutely. I think for me, it's probably my toughest fight to date, I think, stylistically, because he's just a hard bloke, and he does everything really, really well. His punch output's decent. He's got a fantastic chin. He's tough. He's got good variety in his shots. Puts his shots together well. Got good feet. He's just a really well-rounded fighter. Lots of names have been mentioned. For me, it's only ever been him or Lawrence, obviously due to the rematch clause. But we've landed on Masternak, and I think it's will be a really good name to have on my record in terms of sort of building a decent record and with a reputable fighter. We've seen him in there with world level people all the time, and always. If he doesn't win, he's most of the time he goes to points bar the once, and he's been in there with some absolute killers. So, expecting a really tough night's work.
This period of time, probably the last 2 or 3 months, I know you mentioned there it was kind of always going to be Lawrence or it was going to be Mateusz Masternak, but there has been a lot of rumours and a lot of names kind of swirling around for you, which it's fair to say hasn't always been the way for your career. Now as a world champion, you do have that target on your back. Have you enjoyed that? Has it been difficult to deal with? Because obviously, we've heard several dates for you up until this point. You've landed on the 10th. How have you managed that whole kind of situation?
Like you said, it's a lot of noise, and most of the time the noise is the outside world. I know what's going on. I know what's going on in the conversations with my team and the promoters and the broadcasters, etc. So I always know roughly what's going on, I've just focused on what I need to focus on, and that's the training. I think a lot of people could get frustrated and stuff, but thankfully I've got a fantastic team who deal with the stressful side of stuff. I had to jump on a few phone calls of during the signing and sorting out the contract and stuff. about certain situations and whatnot, because signed a new free fight deal with Boxer. So there was a few conversations there. But it's other than that, it's just focus on what I can control, and that's the training, and whoever it is, need to be ready for him.
5 months or so now since you've become world champion. If you can, explain to me how your life has changed, or has it changed?
I think it's changed slightly. I've been given opportunities to do some pretty cool stuff.
Like coming here?
Coming here. I mean, I did have that before I was world champion, but
we look forward to it now, though. There's value in it for us.
That's a valid point. I got to go out to the F1. Sky Sports allowed me to go out to the F1, sorted me out some tickets in Amsterdam. So took me and my wife and for our birthday / our anniversary, which was amazing experience. Really, really cool. So that's different. I've never been to F1 before, and amazing experience. And then other than that, you get noticed a little bit more in a few more places, but nothing else changes really. Still have to change nappies. 2 yesterday morning. Had to change the little man. Mia was out, so I had him overnight. Changed 1, and then 2 minutes later, he's definitely, done a number 2, and I'm like, okay, better change that. So nothing changes on that front, which is good. Literally just, I guess, recognised a bit more, and probably get taken the mick out of in the gym and in here for being a world champion. And everyone's saying that I've changed, apparently. So you have to ask everyone else, clearly.
I have, and that's why I've asked you. I was just going to go back a little bit. So you managed to, I'm just trying to think for future reference for me. You combined a work trip with a birthday present and an anniversary present. Is that like next level thriftiness? Or?
I think Mia's birthday is 3 days before our anniversary. So I sort of tied it in, and it was a big one, abroad, Amsterdam, nice hotel, that sort of thing. Obviously, Sky Sports kindly sorted out the tickets, which would have been an expense I probably wouldn't have been too happy to stretch to. But I think so, mate. As long as it's good enough, you tie them in one.
I need
to be honest, with the anniversary, I can do anything because she doesn't get me anything. I do like the traditional,
flowers,
what
card.
Is it? No, like each anniversary is a different thing. So it's like first year is paper, second year is cotton, third year is leather, and we're 3 years now. So every year I've got wrote her a letter 1 year on some paper, got like a cotton hoodie which like has had something on it. I think it was the date or something of when we got married, like a little snuggly hoodie. And then the third year,
leather now.
Yeah, got
leather. An interesting present.
Yeah, it was. It was a leather rose. I got her a leather rose in a little vase. And I'm still waiting for my paper, cotton and leather from her. So it doesn't matter what happens on anniversary, mate. I've always got a 1-up or 3-up now. And every year I'll be ticking off. Every Christmas I'll be expecting more.
That's something for me to factor in. I'm going to see if my missus wants to go to Benefides Andrade for my anniversary.
I'm sure. I mean, they're paper tickets. Do you know what I mean? So
it's a good point. Although, what's 12 years? 12 is not paper, is it?
12 years. This is wedding anniversaries.
Okay, well, I'm not married.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So anyway.
So you're all right, mate.
Anyway, moving back to the boxing. Your win over Lawrence Okolie. Now, I think it's fair to say that you were an underdog going into that fight. You were an underdog, despite it being on home patch, despite it being the home of your beloved Bournemouth Football Club.
Up the cherries.
But, of course, on the night, you were able to dethrone Lawrence Okolie and become WBO Cruiserweight Champion of the World. What's your recollection of the fight now? You've obviously, how many times have you watched it back by this point?
I've watched it back a fair few times. Not as much as I've watched the ring walk back. The ring walk's epic, isn't it?
And also, the ring walk's only like, a minute and a half or something.
Well, not that one, mate. That was epic ring walk.
I only watched a minute and a half.
But, it was...
Has it sunk in now? Is it fully...
I don't know. I don't think so. Not really. But I don't think you can appreciate it. I can really appreciate it, and I'm grateful for it, and like get buzzing watching it back, and goosebumps watching it back, and happy to like buzzing to talk about it with people. But I don't think it probably sinks in and you realise until you retire, because I've got another fight lined up. So it's like it's so irrelevant right now what happened, because I don't want to be a flash in the pan, as I've said many times, and I've got another fight. I've got a defence to do, so all eyes are on that. I think maybe when I retire, it will sink in a bit more, and yeah, there's more to achieve. So yeah.
Is that what motivates you now? Kind of, well, what is your motivation, I suppose? Is it another belt? Is it becoming a two-weight world champion? Or is it just the financial side? What kind of pushes you now at this stage of your career, now you've become world champion?
Yeah, I think a legacy of sorts. I'm not, one of these people like, yeah, it's all about legacy and this and the other. It's a legacy of sorts where I can use the legacy for other things, and but also financial for sure. When you sort of win a world title, that's like, people think, oh, you're world champion, you're a millionaire, and or people thought that before as soon as you fight on Sky Sports, they think you're earning the big bucks. But no, now's the time to sort of reap the rewards of the years of hard work and financially, and got a young family, and build that up, and that's another motivating factor for sure. But yeah, I want to push on. I want to have big fights, and I think the big fights now are more. It's more before you're kind of like, okay, what's not the easiest route to a world title, but because I've never been that fight, I've always taken risky fights, and we were trying to fight Opatara, we were trying to fight Goulamiri, and then we ended up with Lawrence because of the situation with the other champions. And so I've never avoided anyone, but I think the big fights now I think they're bigger from my part because I've got more to offer, whereas before they weren't big because I'm just Chris from Bournemouth and I don't have a world title belt. But now obviously the people are more interested because as a world champion, and the big fights are bigger.
Do you think you'll box at Bournemouth again, as in the football stadium? I know there's a lot of talk about potentially next year you going there, but you've done it now, or is there kind of other goals that you want to achieve with regards to where you box in your career?
I think there's a possibility of doing it again, yeah. I think if I'm headlining in this country, then as the A-side fighter, then you'd expect me to... You'd need a bigger venue than what we've got on December 10th most of the time. Even this fight, we'd like a bigger venue for. I expect it to sell out pretty soon. But yeah, so I think the stadium is the only bigger venue in Bournemouth which can actually host an event like that. So yeah, but long term, I think Vegas is the one. I think a few people have said they're bang up for that. I know you're up for it.
Always up for a trip to Vegas. Always.
But yeah, I think Vegas is like, once upon a time, fighting at Bournemouth for a world title was a pipe dream. So now I guess Vegas is my next pipe dream, and that seems more achievable in the situation I'm in now than the winning a world title the stadium did at one point. So, dream big dreams, as I learnt from the film Sing, which my son absolutely loves watching. Yeah, that's old Buster Moon's quote, dream big dreams. So that's what I'm doing in Vegas for me, or anywhere in the States would be phenomenal, to be honest. MSG would be unbelievable. But yeah, I think I'd love to fight abroad, but that's probably 4 fights away at least because of the names that are in the division at the moment and stuff, and who I'm likely to fight in after getting through December 10th.
Do you think will it ever be as good as the night at Bournemouth? Will it ever top that? And are you okay with that? I guess you'd have to kind of sort of look at it quite objectively and just be like, and it's never going to get as good as that, or do you not think about that? Do you think that there's always potential to top it?
Yeah, no, I can't get as good as that. I just can't see how it can. Like, I used to sit in that stadium as a kid, dreaming of like chanting players' names, thinking that must be amazing, having all these people in this stadium chanting your name. And then I had that for a different circumstance, but winning a world title, the pinnacle of the sport. Weather was good, the opponent was perfect, someone who I knew very, very well and wanted to fight many, many years ago as an amateur. it just all fell into place, and it's just very fortunate. I just don't think it can get any better than that, and that's fine. I'm okay with that, and I think it's important that I'm okay with that, and I'm aware of that. Otherwise, I think I'd just be trying to chase that high that I had that night, and obviously the high was not short-lived, but the high was only after the fight because I was so zoned in during the fight. Watching it back, I get the high and, you know, appreciate it for what was actually happening and what was going on. But the high was after the fight and actually realising, I'm pretty sure I've won this, and then getting announced as a winner, and then that's the high. And all those emotions that I'd sort of bottled up on fight week or fight night and all that from the crowd and the years and years of graft all just come into that moment, and you finally get crowned world champion and in the perfect setting. So I think that was that high all bottled up into what you saw on the screens, or for you saw there that night, was that, you know, those tears of joy and just I don't know what the word is, ecstasy. I think that's the perfect word to sum it up. And obviously, phenomenal after party in my hotel room with some pizzas with you and a few others. You, Ben, Shane, I think what was about 10 of us in there.
Yeah. Groves.
Eventually, after
we got you back from the stadium.
Yes, yeah. Shout out to you and Ben for staying with me, because my team had left me. They couldn't wait. They needed their pizza and whatever. But I had a drugs test to do, and you stayed by me and got me in a cab home and told the taxi driver that I was world champion. He couldn't have been less
just wasn't
bothered.
Interested. He had the meter running at the time, so he was just like, "Oh, is he, mate?" He was just trying to make conversation to keep the meter running. But we did stay with you. We waited for you to do your anti-doping control, and then bundled you into the back of a cab outside Bournemouth Stadium.
Yeah, and I just don't think that night can be beaten, and I think that high was phenomenal. And
the fight itself, how different or how similar was Lawrence to the fighter that you used to spar in the gym? Because obviously by that point he'd gone with Sugar Hill, he'd had a couple of fights with him. It was his second fight with him. What surprised you? What was different? What was the same?
Nothing surprised me. I think that's why I was able to stay so calm. Obviously I'd never dropped him in the gym or even seen him get dropped in the gym. And obviously I dropped him, but I knew what I was capable of. I knew I was capable of doing that. So I think it wasn't like, oh my God, I've knocked down a world champion here. It was just part of, I visualised it. I'd watched the Savon fight loads in camp, and seen the way he moves when he makes that mistake and that transition from attack to defence and pulling out. He did the same thing against Savon when he got dropped and stopped. So, yeah, I was aware that was possible, and I was aware I had the power to do it. And obviously it happened, and couldn't quite get rid of him as much as I tried in the fourth round. He did well just to hold on in there, and did really well to come back into the fight as well. But nothing really shocked me. I think it was just, you know, he's good. He looks to line up the right hand and landed a couple, but I think that was the difference in terms of what he thought would happen. He thought, I landed him in these gloves, these 10-ounce gloves, then it's all over. And then when he didn't even hurt me, and then he's probably thinking, well, now what do I do? But yeah, nothing really surprised me in there, to be honest. You know, strong guy, always been strong on the inside, hard to get my work off on the inside. Few adjustments I could have done better, but a few adjustments I did make and got a few shots off. But no, I don't think I would have surprised him that much either. I think maybe a bit more strength than when we last sparred, and maybe punch power because the gloves were a lot smaller. But other than that, I don't think either of us would have been surprised. It was just, other than him when he hit me, maybe he thought I would have gone.
Do you think you will fight him again? Because there was talk about like going into the rematch. Obviously, much made about the rematch clause beforehand. You've landed on Masternak. There's all this talk about Opetaya and Riakporhe and all of these people to potentially come next year. But Okolie's there. There's still talk about him potentially moving to heavyweight. Do you see yourselves boxing again?
Yeah, I think so. I think I know Lawrence well enough to think that that will always sit on his mind, and I think I know the sort of person he is. He's going to want to run it back, and I've signed into the rematch. That was part of the next contract, signing into to fight him. So I'm aware I'm going to have to fight him again, which for me is more intriguing than the rematch. It'll be a completely new challenge because I think he'll change a lot. I think his tactics will change a lot. But I'll improve on my performance, and I think it will make, hopefully, for a better spectacle. But yeah, it's. I think he knows now he can't get away with the holding, and if he's not knocking someone out. But then again, I know the holding's coming. A lot of people hold with him, whereas I didn't hold with him. So he gets away with it. Doesn't get points taken because both people are holding. But with me and him, 95% of the time it was him holding me or looking to hold me, because I just knew I had to keep my arms free and work away or try and work away. So yeah, who knows? If it'd be interesting, see what happens if I'm his next fight or if he fights in the meantime, to see how he adjusts.
Obviously not taking anything away from your own performance, but it's all right there, Dan. No problem, mate. No worries. It's fine. Not taking anything away from shout out, Dan, and not taking anything away from your performance, obviously. But do you think he overlooked you?
Yeah, for sure. I'm a changed fighter from when he was in the gym last. I've improved a hell of a lot. Obviously, since then, I think I'd had the Tommy McCarthy second fight, which was obviously a lot better performance than the first fight. The Isaac Chamberlain 12-round war that we had. The Zhozai knockout, so he just probably thought they were, probably looked at the Chamberlain fight for, he's had a ding dong with Chamberlain, but probably didn't think about what I said after in terms of the camp I had wasn't ideal, but still got the job done. Probably just thought Tommy McCarthy, maybe just didn't even think about that and just thought, I know Chris well enough. I've done so many rounds. Once I hit him in 10-ounce gloves, he'll go, which is weird because he's never hurt me in sparring. Never ever hurt me, buzzed me or anything in sparring, and didn't in the fight either. So I think maybe that shocked him because I think he put out a video before the fight, tagged me in it and said of us sparring, and then in the same spar I was like, I just sometimes get worried and then I just think if I hit you in 10-ounce gloves, you're gone. And I'm just thinking, I won't be gone. I know I won't. And and obviously that didn't happen. He had 10-ounce gloves and that didn't happen. So that's probably what surprised him in our fight. But I think the rematch will be intriguing if it happens.
You mentioned Isaac Chamberlain. Of course, you had that 12-round war with him last July in Bournemouth. Saw you recently with him at York Hall when he picked up the British title eventually against Mikhail Lawal. Great to see that. Boxing's brilliant for it when you share 12 rounds with somebody like that. There's always that bond, sometimes bad, but quite often it's good and positive. So it must have been really good for you to see him go and kind of get over the line and get that British title.
Yeah, it was great. We're similar in the sense we're just two lads who are grafted away for many years, had a great fight, shared 12 rounds together. He's a dad. I think his son's 2 now or coming up to 2. So our sons aren't that far apart in age, maybe 7 months apart. And he's so we're recent dads to little toddlers. So we have a lot of similarities in that sense. Yeah, I was happy for him, putting a good performance. It's punch perfect from Isaac, really. Obviously Mikhail didn't look to offer too much, especially in the first half of the fight, but Isaac didn't let that just become boring from his part. He was still trying to push the pace, let his hands go, and just really, really happy for him. He's a good lad, and if he keeps winning and putting in good performances, and we might even have a rematch down the line.
Before that potentially happens, saw your old mate Viddal Riley calling him out for a potential bout as well. Obviously, English champion and somebody that you boxed as an amateur many, many moons ago. You like that fight?
Yeah, I think so. I think for Viddal, it's if you're managing Viddal, it's sort of like it's a no-lose situation, because I think Vidal's got a very good chin. Isaac's not the biggest puncher. Obviously, it's cruiserweight boxing, so anyone can get hurt, but you wouldn't expect Viddal to get stopped in that fight. And I think as long as he doesn't get stopped and puts in a decent performance, it's a win in terms of his career, because he's very early on. You're going to gain 12 rounds of experience. This is worst case scenario, is you're going to gain valuable experience, and people hold on to their O's too much and let it affect them. It affects them, can affect them later on in the year, holding on to the O and not taking any risk at a higher level because they got through a few when they were earlier on in their career, or avoided them. And I think you just got to have those sort of fights. He's boxed Koalas last time out, he was unbeaten, Viddal. So he's willing to put his O on the line against other unbeaten fighters or very good fighters. But I just think for Isaac, why take that fight? The only thing to gain is the traction off of Vidal's following, which is obviously good for boxing, but I feel like he's too far past that now in terms of British and Commonwealth champion, probably a couple of fights away from a European title shot. Do you risk it to go back and fight an English champion? Yes, if you win, you'll get maybe a bit of the following and a bit of traction from that, but people aren't going to give you your props, because people are going to go, well, he's English champion and he went, he didn't. It's not like he's blown everyone away, and he's very early on in his career, and it was a step too soon. So I think for Viddal, it's a no-lose, and I just don't know how much there is to gain for Isaac. So if I was a boxing manager and put in that position, then it's a bit of like, for Viddal, I think it's the perfect fight. For Isaac, does it really make sense? But nonetheless, from a fan's point of view, very, very good fight, I think. I think both highly skilled lads, very cute in what they do in terms of they see a lot of shots, they let their hands go. I think it'd be a really good fight for the fans.
Back to yourself, and kind of mention some of those names that were swirling around for the last probably 2 or 3 months, or even longer in some instances. Gulamarian, Jai Opataya, Mikalian and Makabu boxing for the WBC. Badou Jack jumping up to Bridgerweight. Which one of those fights do you think is the most difficult fight for you, and why?
I think based on activity, Opataya, because he's got a bit of momentum off the Jordan Thompson fight. It looks like he's going to fight Breedis next, and probably fairly soonish in the next few months. But style-wise, he's a really hard fight for anyone. But so is Gulamarian, but he's a bit more flat-footed, Gulamarian. But his inactivity sort of makes him sort of less of a threat, and his age is obviously getting on a bit. But I think Opataya, he's fresh, hungry. He's obviously had a long layoff. Got the ring, not the ring rust, but got that bug back in when he sort of walked through Jordan, really.
Were you surprised at that or not? Because he did. You mentioned kind of walk through. He did go through.
Yeah, for me, it was like it could have ended the first round. You could have pulled Jordan out, said he can't make the weight anymore. There would have been some coach saying, "Look, he's too done at the weight or whatever," because he's massive for the weight. I think he puts on ridiculous amounts of weight as well. So the fact it's an IBF fight, and he's had a limit that he can put on, the 14-pound limit. So I think I would have taken a lot out of him. But Opataya is box levels ahead of him throughout his career, really. Was it the Olympics, Commonwealth Games? So he's got that extensive amateur experience, then obviously beats Breidis, and has always performed even when he hasn't boxed like names, so people didn't really know much about him before Breidis, but still boxed well. If you look at the actual fundamentals, put in good performances. So that's why I picked him to beat Breidis, because I thought age of Breidis and stuff, but still a close close fight. I thought he might just nick it, and that's basically what happened. You've gone from his best win being Bradis to Jordan Thompson's best win probably being Vasyl Dusar or maybe Luke Watkins, based on Luke Watkins a better fighter than Dusar, but Dusar's tough bloke, and obviously gave him problems and more adversity than maybe Luke did. So I think that is a massive step up from Dusar, Luke Watkins to Jaya Patai. He's IBF and Ring Magazine champion, so it shows how important experience is. And I think that's why when Lawrence's fight came around for me, I've had a lot of domestic fights. I've had 12 rounders. I've had close fights with domestic people. I've stopped domestic opponents. I've had tough tests against Dusar where you hit him with everything and get him down, and he just won't get up. Won't stay down. Sorry, gets up every time. And I think that all those experiences have got me to ready for that world title fight against Lawrence. And I think with Jordan, that's so important. And I went in the changing room after and said that to him. I said, like, congrats, mate. You've gone in there with the world number one, because rightly he is at the moment. And I said, it's just that golfing class. You haven't bridged that gap between that level and world level. It was a good performance. I think Opataya would be the hardest fight for me.
Seems like a quite spiky character as well, Opataya, which I don't know why. Like, I think I've spent too much time watching interviews from the Maloney twins, who are like the nicest people in the world. You kind of automatically assume every Australian boxer at the minute is going to be like even Liam Parrow's like nice guy, kind of chirpy Australian, and sort of sat down and listened to Jaya Patai and was a bit scared to go out later that night in case he was around the corner. Very interesting sort of character, very intense guy, it seems, Jaya Patai.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to him on fight week at the workout, just introduced myself the first time I met him.
When you see someone, you introduce it, because that'd be the first time you met him.
Yeah, first.
Do you
time
have a little? Is there like an energy?
Not in fight mode then. So I'm like, shake his hand, be me as a human. Do you squeeze? No, I'm not one of them either. Are you a hand squeezer? No,
I don't like hand squeezers.
Not a hand squeezer.
Stop squeezing people's hands.
I've got a funny story about a hand squeezer. Me and Lee McGregor, when he was in the gym, went to an BBBFC awards evening with Barry, and some bloke shook Barry's hand, or shook our hands and shook Barry's, I think, because Barry was like, you started talking to Barry, and Barry goes, "Oh, this is my two fighters," and he squeezed both our hands. I was like really went for it, and then he squeezed Barry's hand, and Barry literally went, "You squeeze my fighter's hands like that again, and I'll knock you out." And then the bloke laughed. He goes, "I'm being serious," and that was just, every time I think of a hand squeezing handshake now, I always think of that bloke, and I feel like he must have been bricking it. Yeah, because Barry hasn't got small hands either.
No,
and so Barry could probably deal with it, but like mine and Lee's little puny hands probably got crushed. But yeah, no, I'm not a hand squeezer. Shook his hand at the workout, and then spoke to him after the Jordan Thompson fight and said, "Look, I've got some business I need to deal with, but definitely let's unify when the time's right."
Did you speak to him on the night?
Yeah.
Scotty was on the card, right?
Yeah. And I was working for 5 Live for the main event. So yeah, it was. I was there. Obviously, great to see Ellie's solid performance, and then I think he must have just finished interviews with Matt Jim and stuff backstage just as I was leaving, and I just said to him, I've got some business to do, but let's get this fight. Definitely, let's do this fight in the future, because me and him have been sort of matched since the Isaac Chamberlain fight, really, because they were trying to get that fight for the stadium. And I think that's a fantastic fight. I think probably one of the, if not the best in the division at the moment.
Where's the big American fight? I know Canelo seems like he doesn't fancy cruiserweight.
Well, he fancies 180, doesn't he?
Which is kind of cruiserweight, I guess.
I mean, it is technically cruiserweight, but I don't know many cruiserweights that can get to 180.
Now, I have a name, so and it's not me, because I can't make cruiserweight. But What about Zurdo Ramirez?
I'm so keen for that.
Zurdo Ramirez.
He's my ticket to Vegas.
He's a big old boy as well. Like, you might have to get on him quickly before he goes to bridgerweight or heavyweight because he's a big old lummox, and also can fight and brings with him a big audience as well.
I mean, his only loss is Bivol, right? And got a 42-1 record, 43-1 record, something like a really extensive record. And if that's my ticket to America, then I'll be calling for that fight. But yeah, I think he's a solid fighter, can really fight. Obviously hasn't really boxed at cruiserweight yet. Boxed Joe Smith, but Joe Smith's really a blown up light heavy.
And it was at 190.
And exactly, the one fight was at 190. So who knows? If he wants to stay at cruiserweight, then yes. I feel like I'm picking on the smaller guys here, but it's my ticket to America. So if that gets me on a plane to Vegas, then I'll have to fight the smaller guy.
Well, I'm sure how small he is.
Well, no, he's still a big bloke, but people will say that because he was a light heavyweight.
You're a bully.
Yeah, that's what I've always been called.
Okay, Chris, I feel like we're right about there now on one-on-one with. Of course, we are just by the time this goes out. I mean, I don't know when it's going to go out. A week and a half, 2 weeks or so, probably ish, until your fight with Mateusz Masternak. So we wish you all the best on December the 10th. But thanks very much for stopping by to ID Towers and joining us here on another episode of One-on-One with.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much. So that's all we have time for today on One-on-One Boxing. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Tell us in the comments who you want to see on here next, and we'll catch up with you next time.
Davey was scared. I scared Davey shitless one day. One day he was at a press conference, and I snuck in, and I came behind him. I said, "Let's go, champ!" And he jumped, and he said, "Ugh." I said, "No, look." And it was a little speck, and I said, "Look." And it was him. Let's go. I was like, yo, make a wave. Let's knock him off the board. Okay. We knocked him off the board, and then he was pissed. Well, I was a homeless teenager at the age of 13, 14. Me and my mom, we lost our apartment. That began my journey into trying to find a way out, trying to find a way out of poverty. Boxing gave me an opportunity to have a life that I wouldn't have had. Like I said, my father died in prison. My mother died of a drug overdose on my birthday. So boxing was something that gave me the opportunity to be here today. I was at a down point in my life about 13, 14 years ago, and I was really depressed, and I was going through some psychological. I got back in shape, and I started saying, "Let's go, champ," as a mantra, because everybody was gone. I had to be my own cheerleader.